What's up, everyone? This is Steve from Bloom Audio. Today we have the Svanar Wireless from HiFiMan. Now, HiFiMan has delivered excellent products in headphones, IEMs, DACs, and even in wireless headphones, but have failed to hit the mark with their true wireless offerings. So, can Svanar Wireless score that bullseye in the TWS category? We usually try to not be too clickbaity on this channel, but it does kind of feel like every other week I'm back with, is this the new best TWS IEM? And it's just that manufacturers keep on putting out new and better models that are really across the board, stepping things up from what we had a couple years ago. Svanar is the latest addition to this party, and it comes in at a somewhat pricey $499. So we're going to take a closer look at Svanar Wireless, build, the design, the sound, and how it stacks up to some of the other candidates for best TWS ever. Svanar Wireless is a great looking set of TWS. The face is plastic, while the back, the portion that's touching your ears, is carbon fiber. They're a little bit on the big side, but I found the fit to be really nice, and it's very lightweight. So it's great, very non-fatiguing fit, and they're compatible with a pretty wide range of ear tips. So you can get that best combination that's going to work for you for, long-term listening. I found they're really solid for that. The case is fairly large and somewhat of an odd shape. So there are some benefits to the case design, like as I mentioned, the ear tips. Svanar is compatible with a wide range of ear tips, and you can use it in the case without having to pull those off. It won't interfere with charging if you use standard IEM ear tips with the Svanar, as it would with some other ones. But in terms of portability, as a comparison, I've been using the Campfire Orbit a lot lately, just as a convenience IEM. They sound great, and the case is just really small, fits in my pocket with my wallet, my keys, my phone, whatever else. That's not going to be the case with the Svanar Wireless case. That is going to, give you somewhat of an awkward looking bulge in your jeans. Svanar Wireless uses Bluetooth 5.2 and supports the AAC, SBC, and LDAC codecs. Provides ANC transparency and high fidelity listening modes. And the max playtime is 7 hours on a single charge, but that case can carry an additional 21 hours of charge. The touch controls on Svanar Wireless are pretty solid, generally quite responsive. And one of the things I really appreciate is there's a very small audible tone with each tap that registers. So when you're doing, a 2-tap or a 3-tap operation, you don't have to kind of wait for the feedback. Oh, the track went back instead of skipping forward. You'll be able to hear that, 1, 2, 3 versus 1, 2, make sure that you get those taps right the first time. So I did appreciate that as a feature. The ANC, transparency, environmental noise cancellation are all pretty solid, but don't expect, AirPods Pro levels of, head movement detection and other things. And, the transparency isn't quite as good as what you're finding on those sort of top tier of consumer IEMs. But the fact that we're even making this comparison at all, and that Svanar Wireless is in the same league as these, just goes to show how far these boutique hi-fi brands have come in delivering TWS options that not only, blow these quiet comfort mainstream options out of the water sonically, they're also pretty close to keeping up with all these other really important features as well. So the HIFIMAN Svanar is $1,999, and the Svanar Wireless is $499. And a quick look at some of the specs might have you asking, isn't this kind of the same thing? So I think this is a really good question here, is how much of that sort of flagship IEM sound are you preserving in this wireless IEM that comes in at a quarter of the price of the original Svanar? Now, in terms of those core tuning characteristics, Svanar Wireless hits really close to the original. In terms of the overall tonal balance, there's a little bit of an emphasis in the bass, a little bit of a pullback in the mids, and then a little bit more emphasis in the treble. Not really V-shaped, not exactly the Harman style tuning, but somewhere in that sort of natural balanced delivery. And Svanar Wireless captures that very well. So in that bass, you get a surprising amount of texture and detail there. That's often one of the first places you listen in a TWS and you hear the difference between what you're getting wirelessly and what you'd get wired is in that bass texture. And Svanar Wireless maintains that really well into the lower extension of the bass. There's good impact there, and there's actually a little bit more bass in the TWS than in the original Svanar, at least based on the sources we used. And it almost pushes it into bass head territory, but considering other options in the wireless space, wouldn't really say that it's too particularly bass boosted or emphasis, but there is just a little bit of extra bass in there. So then after that emphasis in the bass, the mids are slightly recessed, kind of as you would expect here. But there's good presence. The lower mids, there's a little bit of warmth there, but it can also come out as just a slight amount of that, mid bass bloat coming out of the mid bass into the lower mids, depending on the genre and the specifics of the instrument. Overall, it's a very natural feel with just a slight hint of warmth, and the vocals and instruments are pretty well balanced. The vocals could perhaps be a touch more forward, with male vocal in particular, but generally solid balance there. So as you move up into the treble, you get some lift through the upper mids into the lower treble region, but the upper treble is largely smoothed out. So you get the fundamentals that you need from the treble without getting really strong extension and air at the top. I think what that gives you is something that does work for a wide variety of genres, even if you might be missing a little bit of that sparkle at the very top. And it also gives you a pretty non-fatiguing tuning. So when you combine the ease of the fit, the lightweight, and that just slightly smooth, relaxed upper end, you get something that's really great for long listening sessions that's not going to tire your ears out, either physically or with too much upper end emphasis. The tuning is great, but the imaging and soundstage are where Svanar really sets itself apart from its competition in this space. It's wide, it's deep, it's three-dimensional all around the listener. The imaging feels precise, feels like there's good weight to the instruments and the voices, the placement, the holographic sense, it all just comes together. And while I've heard some of these characteristics separately in different different TWS wireless IEMs, I haven't really heard them all come together like this in a full cohesive sound. So while the other aspects, the detail retrieval, the overall tonal balance, those are all really strong, the imaging, I think, is just a cut above anything else out there right now. So let's talk about, what else is out there. Svanar is now, I think, the third main contender for the hi-fi best TWS IEM out there right now. The other two being the final ZE8000, which we just reviewed a few weeks ago, and the Noble FoKus Mystique. In terms of the design, comfort, and the kind of overall user experience, previously I feel ZE8000 had a better experience for me than the Noble FoKus Mystique, but FoKus Mystique had an easier fit, and just some aspects of that basic stuff, like the ear tips and all of that. ZE8000 uses a proprietary ear tip that you can only get from Final, and you may have trouble finding the exact perfect fit with that. So while kind of on the electronics end, I'd give the edge to Final, the physical end, I gave the edge to the FoKus Mystique there. And I think that Svanar Wireless really pulls together parts of both of those. As I mentioned, it is very comfortable, but the technical end of things also works, I think, just about as well as the ZE8000, except for the lack of the app. So that is one disadvantage here. It doesn't have the EQ and other features that come with a dedicated app from the manufacturer. But in just about every other category, I would say it equals or betters ZE8000 and FoKus Mystique. In terms of the sound, Svanar Wireless hits kind of smack in between FoKus Mystique and ZE8000. FoKus Mystique has a stronger emphasis in the bass and treble, a little bit more of a soft V sound, and ZE8000 gives you that fuller, richer mid-range and a stronger, more extended treble rather than this sort of a, pop up and roll off. So Svanar gives you, not quite as much emphasis in the bass as Mystique, but a little bit more than ZE8000. Not quite that rich mid-range of the ZE8000, but more mids than Mystique. And in the treble, again, I think it's a little bit more balanced out than Mystique, which has a little bit more of that emphasis and roll off. Svanar is a little bit more straight through, but doesn't extend as well as ZE8000. So really with the tuning, it kind of just depends on what you're listening for, what you're looking for. You want that more fun sound? Do you want that more technical sound? Do you want something in between the two? That's really what's going to make the decision there. I can't really say any of these are definitively better tuned than the other. They're just very much different. Then, of course, there's the imaging. Up until last week, I thought ZE8000, the best imaging that I had heard in a TWS, and now Svanar Wireless does. I think it's this idea that it captures elements of both what FoKus Mystique does well and what ZE8000 does well. ZE8000 had the space and the separation. FoKus Mystique had a little bit more of the weight. It sounded a little bit more natural and lifelike. Svanar Wireless has the space, it has the separation, but it also captures that more natural, lifelike sound. So it gives you the best of both worlds in a lot of ways. And again, just an incredible imaging performance. On most points, I think there's a lot of give and take between the three and a lot of preference involved between what you want. Matt found that the ZE8000 had a better fit for him than it did for me. And so he finds some of those characteristics to be a little bit better. He found the ZE8000 bass to hit a little harder than I hear it and other aspects like that. So there's going to be a lot of different preference options and just, how does your ear fit, different IEMs. But I think in the specific technical aspects of the sound is the one place I can say Svanar really does separate itself and kind of take a clear win here over FoKus Mystique or ZE8000, while a lot of those other aspects are just going to come down to what works best for you. If you've been following the HiFi TWS market for the past couple years, you can see there's been a clear evolution in terms of that balance between sound quality and the features, the quality of the build, the electronics, and all that other stuff. And right now, Svanar Wireless is kind of at the apogee of that evolution between the excellent user experience and the sound quality. Right now, if you're asking what's the best TWS on the market, it might be a little pricey, but I think it's the Svanar Wireless. Thanks for watching, and check out Svanar Wireless and a lot of other great products at bloomaudio.com. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll be back soon with more high fidelity audio content.